What's going on, guys? It's your boy Burrow77 coming to you live with Brad Thomas for a bracket breakdown. Brad, why don't you give yourself a little bit of an introduction and tell the people what it is you do? Drop any plugs you want too.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. First and foremost, thanks for having me. Anybody who follows me, they know I love college basketball, but I'm not a huge college basketball handicapper. But I think that actually allows me to look at these games with a different lens, right? Because yes, I know these players, I know these teams, but I can't tell you who past maybe team 6 in KenPom rankings is. And I'm not going to be just beholden to these KenPom rankings like a lot of people will be, whether that's great or it's terrible. I don't care. I think I have a great time. When I bet, and when I don't, I don't. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas, where I post most of my plays, pretty much 99.9% of my plays. You can find me on the TikTok at Brad's Best, where I'll post the rest of them there, dude. But yeah, listen, this is an exciting time. I'll be out in Vegas this week for the first round. I already got my outfits ready, but it's kind of funny. Like the first outfit I'm wearing, the team didn't even make it to the tournament, but I bought it to the tournament when I for sure thought they were going to make it. The second outfit, I actually have that team losing, I think, in round 2, which kind of sucks, but at least I'll get to wear it. And then obviously the third outfit, I have my Retro Alabama gear, which I'm going to throw on. I think they play at like 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to throw that on whenever they get ready to play.
Nice, man. Yeah, I know you sent me that Kansas State starter jacket that you copped. Yep. That thing is so freaking fire. And that's also why I'm dripped out in my Hawaiian shirt. Because I know that anytime you have Brad Thomas on, that's a swag off you're not going to win, right? Like I'm a 14 seed going up against a 3. But I do appreciate it. Brad and I have done a little merchandise swap before. He's got me tripped out. He sent me a sick Hawaiian. I know Brad is a fellow big soccer head who works with BetUS as well. He does the EPL show for them, but he's actually a Juventus fan.
Let's go.
So me and my boy Young Leg make a shirt that says Juventus versus everybody that I know that he rocks. So yeah, we did do a little swag exchange there, kind of like dudes swapping jerseys when they leave the court. So I appreciate it. I appreciate having you on. And let's just jump right into some of this bracket stuff. Jumping in, let's talk a little first 4 in, last 4 / next 4 out. I do think that the selection committee got some things right. I do think they got some things wrong. And number 1, where I'll start, where I think they got something wrong, is Indiana State. Indiana State should be dancing, and they were asked about it. They were asked about it in an interview. Why is a team like Michigan State get in over Indiana State? And they go, well, we just think they had the better record quality and they had more quality wins. Michigan State has 1 quad 1 win, and they have no good wins outside the state of Michigan until they made it to the Big Ten Conference Tournament and won on a neutral floor. And look, I get it. It's Sparty. It's Izzo. This is when Michigan State turns up and plays their best ball. I will not be surprised to see them upset somebody. And that's okay. You can tell people the reason they're in and Indiana State's not is because it says Michigan State on the front of the jersey.
Exactly. No, I agree. I'm 100% in agreement. It's kind of funny too, because I'm actually going to be betting on Michigan State because, there's a big difference of deserving and then who has the coach to win one tournament game after an entire weeks of preparation. Indiana State definitely got shafted. I was looking on this list too. I think that I probably like FAU being an 8 seed where Colorado has to play the play-in was kind of weird to me too, because FAU beat Arizona, but they weren't the FAU team from last year. And I feel like they got a lot of respect for being the team that they were last year. They're like, oh, we're going to respect them, give them the 8 seed. Now Colorado, who I thought played better opponents. I mean, had better quad records, whatever. Now has to play in just to get in. And you know how hard it's going to be to play in the play-in game. Then, now you have to try to win a round 1 game. They're going to be toast by round 2.
Yeah, and speaking of Colorado, I think the Mountain West Look, I'm a big mid-majors guy because I make a lot of money on mid-majors. I think there's a lot of money to be made there, especially midweek and on the weekends. But the handicapping landscape is always changing, and the more popular, the more states that go live, the more mainstream this becomes. The less and less that edge is kind of there on mid-majors.
Yeah.
I think the Mountain West Conference got way too much respect because of how deep San Diego State made a run last year. I do think there's very good and quality basketball out there in the Mountain West. And I think they are deserving of being in tournament games. But other than San Diego State making a run to the finals last year, they get bounced in their first game frequently. And that's because the Mountain West out there, those kids care, and your home building is a cheat code. Like, everybody who knows college ball in Mountain West knows that Utah State's building is an absolute cheat code. So I do think that they were a little overinflated. I think we got a lot of bid stealers too with the conference tournament upsets, which I'm all for. I think is awesome. I'm glad St. John's didn't make it in. And I will say, out of the ACC teams that were first four in, last four out, I think the committee got it wrong with this one. Virginia should be out and Pittsburgh should be in. I think Pittsburgh played the better ball. I think they have the more, I don't want to say attractive, but they have the more TV-friendly, viewer-friendly style of basketball.
Yep.
And I just don't super rate Virginia. And I say that, but at the same time, when you play defense the way Virginia plays defense, it will not surprise me if they somehow find a way to grind their way into the Sweet 16 either.
Yeah, I don't know. I have Virginia losing after they beat, who are they playing? Colorado State, I believe. After they beat Colorado State, I have them losing to Texas. So maybe the committee did get it right if they win that game. That's what I also like about these play-in games, where it's kind of like the committee saying, listen, we got it right. As much as you hate this team, they made it to the actual tournament. They've made it past the first four.
Yeah, I like that. So we'll keep it moving from snubs and we'll jump right into some bracket stuff. Starting with the East, which I think this is just an absolute gauntlet, man. You got UConn here as the 1 seed. San Diego State is the 5 seed playing UAB, which is going to be an incredible game. You got Auburn in here as the 4 seed. Illinois is the 3 seed, and Iowa State is the 2 seed. And I think the committee, like, no matter which way you slice it, I'm not a Houston believer, but you have to admit that it's Houston and UConn, and then kind of everybody else when it comes to the 1 seed. I think Purdue's fraudulent. I think their history in the tournament has proven that you can't really back them as the highest 1 seed right now. But without a doubt, Iowa State is the strongest number 2 seed. They finished they finished second in the Big 12, won the Big 12 tournament over Houston. I thought that they were an actual legitimate contender to knock Houston off the 1 seed line. And then you throw them in the bracket with UConn. This is set up, 1, for madness, which I love, and chaos, but 2, I think this is a little, I don't want to say rigged, but like this is a little gerrymandered so that UConn has a very difficult time going back to back.
Dude, listen, Prop Bet Guy posted this, and I agree with everything he said, like how much of a gauntlet it is. Listen, UConn number 1 overall seed, Iowa State Big 12 champs, Illinois Big 10 champs, Auburn SEC champs, San Diego State runner-up last year returning the core of the team, BYU 17th ranked team, and FAU a Final Four team last year, all in the same bracket. It's kind of disrespectful, right? Like, what was the committee thinking? Like, you have to reward success. You have to reward the number 1 overall team. I didn't even think through that list. I said anything about Iowa State. I did Big 12 teams. Iowa State consistently plays with energy, heart, and they're a damn good team. Like, let's just compare them to a Marquette, who could be playing without their best player for the stretch of this tournament. A Tennessee, who has their own vulnerabilities. And Arizona, who at times I think's overrated, who I think loses in the Elite 8.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Staying with the East side here, is there any are there any sleeper upset spots you're liking here in this absolutely savage East bracket? I think that UAB is going to give San Diego State a game. I think San Diego State does end up pulling through there, just because of their experience and their ability to get stuff done on a neutral floor, on the road. Tournament experience is big here. But UAB is playing great ball right now. And look, the state of Alabama has some incredibly competitive basketball. I don't need to tell you, as a Bama fan, how tough that gauntlet is. But yeah, is there anything else you might be looking at?
Yeah, I went with Drake over Washington State.
Okay.
Looking at the way Washington State ended the season, right? Yes, they had that win over Arizona, but we already talked about what we think of Arizona. But then they lost to Arizona State, they lost to Washington, lost in the Pac-12 tournament to Colorado. I think they're ripe for a supreme upset, just because it's a serious coin flip. I can't remember what the odds were in that game, but I was really close to taking Drake, but I did not like the price. I couldn't remember what it
Drake's
was.
down to -2 now.
Yeah,
you can catch -1.5 at some shops.
Exactly. And so it's funny to see the books agree with you. I was hoping to catch Drake at like a +1.5, +1, but no, I think a lot of people are going to pick Drake over Washington State.
Interesting. And I get it. Drake plays very good ball. They had a really tough non-conference schedule. I think a 10 seed in the East in one of the hardest brackets is a little bit disrespectful. And I think that kind of shows why Indiana State didn't make the bracket.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like that's a little disrespectful to the Ohio Valley Conference. That is them, right? Yeah, that's the Ohio Valley. Yeah. So my thing with that is I like Drake, and I think it's good. My biggest problem is Drake is one of the shortest teams in college basketball. They play small ball. Washington State is the second highest team on average in college basketball. So I think it will be a little bit difficult for them to create space when it comes to shooting on the outside. But if they're able to put the ball on the floor and drive the lane, I think that allows them to draw a lot of contact and get to the free throw line, which, in college ball, that's
exactly.
I tend to start putting a lot more weight, especially into my predictions and I know you're a projection models and a computers guy. I start to increase that statistical weight on free throws a lot more when we get into tournament time. Because of how important it is to hit your free throws here. Yep. Other than that, I am really happy to see Duquesne get into the tournament. I bet VCU to win that game, but you gotta love when somebody gets here for the first time.
I bet VCU too. I was pissed.
I'm a big fan of Max Shulga and a couple of those guys there at VCU. They have a good program. And that was a really tough tournament. That A10 was littered with upsets, so it was cool to watch. I'm looking through the bets you sent me. I don't think we have any in the East here, do we? Oh, yeah, we do. So you are on UConn -26.5 versus Stetson.
Listen, I'm a Florida guy. I'm down here in Florida, man. Great story for Stetson. I actually been at a wedding where someone got married in Stetson. But this UConn team, outside of Houston, might be the most complete team in the tournament. Stetson, happy to be in, is going to be happy to be out. It's just one of those unfair numbers where when UConn wins this by 30 plus, a lot of people are going to be looking back saying, why didn't I bet this game? Another bet I flirted with was Auburn -13. Just because of how well Auburn can play in the transition, especially if Yale's going to be shooting threes, that transition is going to be there all day. I couldn't quite get to the 13. I think I had them circled at 12, which was an entire point off. So maybe if I have some drinks, and I'm like, okay.
If you're winning a couple early tickets that day.
Yeah, then I'll lay it. But those were the two bets, one lean and one actual bet when I took UConn there.
Nice. And real quick, I want to just mention for the people watching at home, there is a really strong trend of 1 seeds covering massive numbers versus 16 seeds. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say over the last decade, they're covering it right around a 60 to 62% clip. Now you do have to, we've had 16s upset 1 seeds in the last, 5 years with UMBC and with Purdue going down. I even forget who they lost to be honest with you, last year. But we have seen what I think that the college playing field has become more and more level, especially in basketball. And all of these games are awesome and more competitive. That said, we'll keep it on moving into the West region where we got North Carolina as the 1 seed. Zona, who did get knocked off their 1 seed line, deservedly so, in my opinion, because I think Zona's soft. And I gotta say it, I'm super glad that the Pac-12 is dead, because I saw the most hilarious tweet ever that at the hotel they had the Pac-12 conference media people staying at. The Pac-12 network was not available in their hotel.
Oh,
it was
my
the
God.
worst TV deal ever made.
Ever.
I'm so glad we don't have to mess around with trying to find games on the Pac-12 network anymore. So I'm happy to see that go. I do think this is a really tough section of the bracket. I know Baylor's tough. Baylor's got a lot of problems with fouls. I think this New Mexico team is really sparky and has a lot of fight to them. When you have 2 stud freshmen like that, it is always fun to watch. So I think New Mexico as an 11 is going to be tough here. I know we got to talk about your boys at Bama. St. Mary's being a 5 seed here is a nice little spot. But I think North Carolina kind of skated through and got themselves a nice, easy top line, which I'm good with because I took a future on them. I tried to buy low after like a couple of rough losses there in the middle of the season, and I didn't wait and buy low enough before they started looking good again. Baycott started figuring it out, stopped getting into foul trouble and having to be either taken out of the game because he fouled out or sitting on the bench late. So I do think North Carolina has gotten it together a little bit more here, and I think they have a little bit better of a bracket to do it in than a lot of other teams who kind of put it together late. What are your thoughts on the West?
Yeah, I agree a lot. And it actually, my thought process on this stems from Alabama, right? Because I was like, this is probably one of the more fraudulent Alabama teams we've had in 3 years. And I was nervous. I was like instant 2nd round exit. And then I look at our side of the bracket, and there's a lot of teams that are really beatable, right? Yeah. Especially your lower seeds, like a Clemson, really beatable. I have New Mexico beating Clemson. Dayton, beatable. I have Baylor losing to New Mexico later on because Baylor's issues. Michigan State, who probably shouldn't deserve to be in. A St. Mary's team who I have going against Alabama, losing to Alabama. But that just makes it easier for a 1-2 matchup on this side of the bracket with North Carolina versus Arizona. This was probably the toughest decision for me too, deciding who was going to win between those 2 teams. But I ultimately went with RJ Davis in North Carolina here. And it's kind of one of those things where, like I told you, I don't dig into the weeds heavy in college basketball. A lot of eye tests for me, and I would say about 4 weeks ago, I said I think UNC is a legitimate national championship contender from the eye test because they can do 2 things really well. If they need a lockdown defensively, they can. Yep. But if they need to play in a shootout, they can. A lot of teams can't do both, and I think that, especially against anybody on this side of the bracket, in this quadrant, I think that really helps them a lot. Man, there's some spicy games in here, but New Mexico State's probably going to be the most bet game by a lot of people this week.
Yeah, and I can see why. Look, I agree with you. I think North Carolina is locked down defensively. They have the offense to get there. I love, their free throw percentage too, being in the top. They're 55, but being able to, as a team, knock them down at over a 75% clip from the stripe is massive for me, because that is what wins and loses a lot of these games. They do have the ability to shoot the three-pointer, but like you said, sometimes in college basketball, it comes down to you need your best players on the floor to step up and handle their business. And I think RJ Davis and Armando Bacot are two of the best in the business. And when you put that duo on the floor together, they are very difficult to stop. One thing I do want to talk about, since you mentioned it, I know we have to reward Dayton for starting out hot and scheduling super difficult out-of-conference, non-conference play. I think that the A-10 was very underrated this year. I really liked how Loyola Chicago put it together late. I really liked what Richmond had going on. I watched a lot of VCU. I watched a ton of A-10 ball because it was they play on Tuesday, Wednesday nights with the Big East and the Big 12. Like that, those are the games I really like to watch. So I think that Dayton's a little bit fraudulent here. I do think it's good that they got in, because I do think Deron Holmes is a stud and is going to be headed to the NBA. But I think Nevada might upset them here first round. I think this Nevada team is very, very good. They got John Lucas. They got Blackshear. This team can flat out hoop. The biggest problem I have with Nevada is Blackshear is a sub 65% free throw shooter. And he has everything else about his game that tells me I can play at the next level. But you cannot play at the next level unless you're Andre Drummond and shoot that way from the free throw line.
Yep, exactly.
Before we keep it moving, New Mexico, I also like them against Clemson. Clemson's biggest issue is turnovers. They have zero ball security, and New Mexico loves picking your pocket. I know that you have some action down already on Alabama versus Charleston. What number did you grab that at?
I grabbed that at 9.5. I had this as a 10-point game for me, with a massive potential blowout here. Charleston, congratulations in getting in. But against tournament teams, they were not good.
No.
Lost by double digits, lost by 18 to Duquesne, lost by 16 to FAU. I think Alabama losing in the first round of the tournament, and I'm not going to sit here and be Nate Oates and say it was a good thing, because Nate Oates was hyping it as a good thing, but I don't think it hurts them. No. And what I mean by that is they needed the rest, because they got to a point where, if you look at this Alabama team, the only contributor on this team was Mark Sears. Mark Sears was averaging like 28, 29 points down the stretch of the season. The next closest guy was like 15. And this is a team who hangs their hat on the effort by everyone else. But I think this is a good opportunity. It's funny too, when I was like handicapping this game, I said, in my notes, Mark Sears is good. Mark Sears is going to be such a handful for Charleston. Make sure that you back his points line. It's probably 21.5. I'm going to take that over. I just think Alabama has a good chance to. What?
I said take his threes too.
Yeah, facts. Alabama's going to shoot a ton of threes. They're going to run in transition. This is going to be a good game for them. It could be one of those situations where, don't be surprised, where if Alabama wins this game by 20 plus and then loses by double digits or more to St. Mary's. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to harp on it, because I know you're a big Bama guy. And actually, we did a lot of live streams, and I was in your bracket tournament last year.
Yep.
And I had SDSU going over Bama, and you were like, I need a minute, bro. Don't text me right now. So, but I do think this Alabama team's good. I'm not going to lie. I had a future on Florida to win the SEC, not because I thought they were going to win the SEC, but because I thought we were going to get a great buyout position. Because they defend what Alabama does very well. Florida defends the above the break 3 and the transition 3, which analytically in metrics I get it. Alabama is great. They love shooting they never turn down a shot that's open. They love shooting the transition three. And then when they can't get a three, they put the rock on the floor and they drive to the rim to try and draw contact. That's my style of basketball. I want to see you, because that's to me, the old-fashioned three is as good as the three, especially with the guys on Alabama who make a lot of free throws. I think Charleston's going to have an extremely hard time controlling the ball and controlling the pace, which is what they would need to do here. And just also on top of that, have Alabama have a terrible day shooting, which they've done before. But when you shoot that high of volume, you always end up getting hot at some point. That's the thing. In college basketball, when you have an offense like Alabama's, if you can get hot for 5 minutes straight, you can put the game away.
Yep. I have one more bet in this side of the bracket too, and I'm so freaking mad. So what I like to do with the tournament in round one is I like to put all my bets in my bet slip before I press enter, because I don't want to be overexposed. Like sometimes, you know how it is, like I love this, I love this, I love this. Next thing you know, you have 25 bets. I had Michigan State as an underdog in my bet slip, and it slipped to them being the favorite, which is okay. It's only a transition of
10, I think it was they went from like a +1 to a -1.5.
Yep. And so I took Michigan State. It's just Tom Izzo, man. Like if you give me Tom Izzo to prepare for an entire week against practically anybody, I'm gonna take Tom Izzo, especially on the pick'em line. So it was a simple. They're gonna win that game and then get destroyed by UNC.
Yes, I believe you are right there. I like that as well. I do. This is Michigan State's tournament. This is their time of the season. And like we said, in the first 4 in, last 4 out, they're in because it says Michigan State on their jersey. And I am pretty confident they can get one here. I do think that Grand Canyon might quietly give St. Mary's a tough game. They are a tough 12 seed. They can play defense here. As we talked about, I'm just trying to stall. Let's not lie. I'm stalling for time here until I can find on the big board the number for Clemson versus New Mexico, because I am going to back New Mexico here. It's down. You can find it at 1.5 still. It looks like it's trending towards -2. I think New Mexico freshmen. New Mexico proved to me time and time again this year in the Mountain West that their freshmen aren't like Xavier's freshmen. They're not so up and down roller coaster that they don't know when to lose and beat big teams, but then feel pressure and choke against teams and play down to competition. So I do think this New Mexico team is very live here. I think the line reflects that. And that's why you're seeing them at a minus number versus an 11 here. I think Baylor's very dangerous. If they can stay out of foul trouble, and if they can keep that freshman guard who's a stud on the floor. The problem is I see him all the time with 2 fouls and 8 minutes left to go in the first half. Like, the guy just doesn't know when to quit, which I love the heart, but like, in college, when you only get 5 fouls, that means you're sitting like you might get a little bit of run to start the second half, but if you pick up that third, you're on the bench until the last 6 minutes.
Yep. No, I agreed. I was expecting to see Baylor at a little bit of a shorter number. I think Baylor's a good game where you can live bet because Baylor has found themselves in some sticky situations early in the first half.
They hate the first half. They hate the first half.
Hate it. Bro. And you get a great price. You get a great halftime price. So that's the reason I didn't bet them at the -14, because I think we'll see like a -5.5, -6.5 at some point in that game.
Yeah, I agree. And real quick, I am just stalling for time for one more second here. Nevada versus Dayton. That's a -1+1 game. I'll be interested to see if that holds. Let's see. They should have money lines up now. Yeah, they do have money lines up now. I don't know. And I'm a big believer in, I think the -1/-1.5 is a really, like, I hate a push there if you win by 1. And this is the big dance. And I absolutely hate getting hooked on a -1.5. So I'll tell the audience, and I think you probably tend to agree with me, I'm more than willing to pay -115 or -120 for the money line. That extra 5 to 10 cents on the dollar for me isn't going to make or break me. I will lay the juice to take Nevada on the money line there over Dayton.
I absolutely agree. 1000% agree. Like in college basketball, these games, man. There's so many games decided by 1 or 2 points. When you're taking that -1.5 or -2 or -2.5, you are literally leaving money on the table and potentially losing because these games are so close, especially with games being extended with free throws. Like you don't see a 6-point game with 1 minute left to go, the NBA trying. Just call it like it is. College basketball, they're shooting threes and fouling, which just gives you more opportunities to get hooked on that.
And that's why everybody loves the tournament so much. Like, when we start seeing this, we're like, I don't know why we don't solve all of our problems with single elimination brackets. Like, other than Champions League, I think this is my favorite. This is the most competitive way to solve who is the best. Keeping it moving, we will jump right into the Midwest bracket. Purdue's the 1 seed here. I think the 8-9 matchup, Utah State, TCU, I think that is one of the tougher 8-9 matchups we're going to see here. That is a Mountain West Big 12. You got to put respect on the Big 12's name. Even though TCU's had some tough losses, they can flat out hoop. They got some kids that can ball there. Gonzaga being a 5 seed, I think they're still a little gassed up here. Kansas beat to hell with absolutely no depth as a 4 seed, screams ripe for an upset spot. South Carolina, Oregon, very difficult matchup there. Creighton been playing good. And then Tennessee on the 2 line here. I think this bracket, if Purdue doesn't do Purdue things and can get through to the round of 16, I think this sets up very nice to get them to play Tennessee.
100%. I totally agree. Like, it's funny because you have to say this is another bracket where if it's not Purdue versus Tennessee in the final 2, it's because either Tennessee or Purdue had the absolute worst games of their lives. Because even like a Creighton at the 3, I have Creighton losing to Oregon. And Oregon's an 11 here. Kansas dealing with injuries. We don't know if Dickerson's going to be what? Is he out the entire tournament? Who knows? Purdue would have to royally screw up and just go flat out cold, and Edey get in foul trouble in a massive game for them to not go through here. I did have a bet that I liked in here was Gonzaga McNeese. I don't know if I sent that one over to you. Over 100.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Gonzaga McNeese over 148.5, right?
Over 148. Even though Gonzaga is only like a 51% over team, it's mainly me playing McNeese. McNeese like a 65% over team, but both of these guys love to play with pace. And I think that is a McNeese team that's going to feel confident that they can run with the Zags. But the problem when you do that is you have a team that's more than happy to run with you. And this has massive blowout potential, but the pace is always going to be there. So I think we hit the 148 pretty easy.
From those of you who don't follow a ton of mid-major college basketball, McNeese State head coach is Will Wade, who used to coach at LSU. Like, he got in a little bit of trouble for recruiting violations. Those don't happen anymore because of NIL deals. And he's got this McNeese State team absolutely humming. I love your read on the over here because, they have the athletes. They have the coaching. They have the talent to run with the Zags here. I think it's going to be a good game. And you got a good number. If you're watching this at home right now, the market consensus is 149, and some shops are already bumping it up to 149.5. And as I always say when I did my college basketball videos this year, if you like overs, you need to take them early because overs are always going to get bet up closer to tip in college basketball. If you like unders, you buy back late. So we'll keep it there. What else did you have? We got the McNeese. You like Oregon over South Carolina. And I want to talk about that one because I'm on South Carolina.
Okay. First, tell me, okay, listen, mine's not going to be all that great, but I think if there's a team ripe for the picking, right? If there's a team who I think from the beginning of their season to the middle of the season to the end of their season, the hype level has changed. The way they've been playing has changed. It's South Carolina. And I've been saying this since the middle of the season. It could be because of what's that guy's name? Big Game Boomer is the biggest South Carolina hyper of the entire world. South Carolina are pretenders in my notes. Dana Altman for Oregon, coaching a really hot Oregon team here. I just thought Oregon, if you were to ask me, gun to my head, I have to pick Oregon. And so I had to bet with what I thought. And if I call this team right for the picking, it's what I did. If South Carolina goes out and beats the doors out of Oregon, I'll have to just take my little $50 loss and move with my tail between my legs.
I don't think they beat the doors off of Oregon. So listen, I 100% understand what you're saying. I think that you're kind of right in that South Carolina is not playing their best basketball at the best time of the season. But they ran into an Auburn team who I think is grossly underrated at a 4 seed. That Auburn team, look, they lost on the road to Bama, which was tough. They lost early to a Clemson team, which I'm willing to overlook. They lost to a Georgia squad who, if you watch Georgia basketball, consistently got better game after game. They got caught sleeping there a little bit. And they lost in the they lost that the South Carolina team lost to LSU, which was Tennessee and Auburn. Like that, it's just, I don't know. I think that Oregon's troubles all stem from the free throw line. And they go there at a high enough clip that you have to shoot better as a team than 71.5%, because these guys take a lot of mid-range shots and they try and get to the paint. And Oregon really only has success if they're able to knock it down from the stripe. And I'm worried about their ability not just to knock them down from the stripe, but South Carolina plays good defense, and they're not going to put you there a lot. So I think it'll be a little bit of a struggle for them to find points if they're not hitting their mid-range game. Whereas I think, South Carolina, though they are inconsistent, defense travels, and I do like the hustle on defense there. Last one that you got on the sheet is Creighton, 12.5 versus Akron. I don't know. There's not a lot to say there. I think Creighton easily covers the number. Akron almost didn't make the tournament, man. The MAC is wild. For those of you guys who know, I went to NIU. I live adjacent to Western Michigan's campus. I follow the MAC. I go to a lot of games. That tournament was absolutely wild. Toledo continues to suck in the tournament. Kent State, as the 8 seed, continues to dominate in the tournament every year. And they probably should have Akron's spot, but they fouled up one because a kid had a brain fart.
Yeah, that was so dumb of them. And listen, Akron, congratulations getting in. Now you get to play against a Creighton team who's going to be really efficient offensively. And in this tournament, when you're really, there's two things that, I don't know if I talked about this earlier in one of my bets. Oh, no, I talk about it in the next bracket. But there's two things that I look at when we're talking about these bigger spreads, right? I look at two things. Is a team efficient, deadly efficient offensively, or deadly efficient defensively? And I think that Creighton has an opportunity to be really efficient offensively in this match, which is just tough for Akron. Like, they're just in a really bad spot, a good spot for them to pat themselves on the back for making it in the tournament. I don't believe in the playing with house money when you're talking about a team like Akron versus Creighton. So I went ahead and I laid the points there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'll tell you why I would be happy to lay this even at a bigger number. Who's stopping Ryan Kalkbrenner? He is 7-1. Who on Akron? Like, don't get me wrong. Akron, MAC conference in general, no disrespect. But, you're a stepping stone program. All of your good players, hit the transfer portal and they take their next step. You have absolutely no one who can go pound for pound in the post with Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is 7'1" and has a very nice hook shot. The thing I can't stand about Kalkbrenner, absolutely zero effort on the offensive glass, man. Like, you are 7'1" of useless bullshit down there. Come down with an offensive board once in a while, and then who's stopping you? You literally just go like this, and there's nobody on Akron who can stop you at the rim. So I do hope that they get Kalkbrenner going early, feed him early and often. And if you are in a state that allows player props, that's a name I got a big red circle around for his double-double, his points, his rebounds. And then Baylor Shireman, who can shoot. That Creighton squad is lethal, and I think is very probably the second best team out of the Big East, especially if we're talking how Marquette's looking with their injuries. Other than that, I don't think there's a ton to talk about in this bracket. Like I mentioned, I think Kansas as a 4 seed is in a lot of trouble if they can't figure out their health stuff. I do think Creighton's tough, and I think that if they run into Tennessee, they give them a tough game. But ultimately, I don't know. That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where the line is on that. But that would be, what is that? Walk out to an Elite 8 matchup? Yeah, that'd be an Elite.
Yep.
No, Sweet 16 matchup.
Sweet 16
matchup. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. If we get a Creighton 2-3 seed with Tennessee there, that'll be a good fun watch in college basketball for sure. Keeping it moving, because I know we got some time stuff. We are getting into the last section in the South. We got Houston as the 1 seed. Nebraska versus A&M is the 8-9 seed. I thought this was absolutely hilarious. The Pardon My Take boys going against each other. They are just killing the content game. Big Cat and PFT with the Scotty versus James Madison content. I think Duke is sleepy good here as a 4 seed. NC State. Hats off to you, my guy. I actually saw a hilarious tweet that says NC State has more wins in that building they played the tournament in there, 5 in a row, than the Wizards have the entire season. Wizards have 4 home wins, so NC State runs that stadium. Kentucky's dangerous. Kentucky's always dangerous. They don't defend.
Yeah.
Florida is a 7 seed, is grossly underrated.
Yeah.
Like, that's garbage. I hope they completely wreck Colorado or Boise State, because I think they're both frauds, and I love that they have a play-in game before they play Florida. Because if Marquette advances here, I'm probably going to take Florida.
Yeah, I did 2 brackets so far, and one bracket I took Marquette, the other I took Florida. Florida's a really good basketball team who shouldn't be a 7 seed, right? And I'm okay with taking Florida here. I'm okay with fading Marquette. You know what? You said something I want to go back to about Kansas being sneaky good and watch out for Kentucky. When I was finishing my Final Four, I have all my Final Four teams except the winner of Kentucky versus Houston. I have yet to decide, and I literally do not know.
Yeah, I'm going to pull that one up a little bit, because I have been a big Houston are frauds all year. I've taken a ton of shit for it. Look, I think this Houston team is definitely better than teams past. But I will tell you the same thing, I say all the time. I don't think that you can win the tournament if you're in the lower 250. They're 288th, according to KenPom, in the nation. This team does not shoot 70% as a collective from the free throw line. Yep. And this is the map, and everybody's giving you the blueprint on how to beat Houston. When Nova knocked them out, how did they do it? They defend like crazy on the perimeter. They make it hard for you to make your three balls. And then when you get inside, you murder them. You can take all the mid-range jumpers you want, but when you try and come to the rim, it's gonna hurt. You gotta play 90s styles basketball, but you can't, you don't want to go over the edge. You can't get flagrants. You can't get technicals, but you need them to know every time they come to the rim, not in my house. I don't care that I know you're going to the foul line. These dudes' knees shake when they're at their foul line. They do not have any confidence at the stripe. My only issue is that's Kentucky. I'm sorry. Duke has the defense too. Yep. Duke has the defense to give Houston problems here. So I do think that is a very sneaky spot for Houston to maybe bow out of this tournament. Speaking of both of those teams, I know you already have some action on both, so let's hear them.
Yeah, so this is funny, right? Houston, I think, is in one of those situations where you better enjoy it while it lasts. I took Houston to cover against Longwood. Houston is just elite defensively against a team like Longwood who could just shut them down. It's going to be one of those blowout games in the first. And then I genuinely believe that it's not going to be all pretty if they play against, I have Nebraska over Texas A&M, but if they play against Nebraska or Texas A&M, and then now they have to determine if they're going to play Duke or Wisconsin. Probably Duke. Tough sledding. They might as well enjoy it while it lasts. I have Duke over Vermont as well, just because of the defense that they can play inside. I think this is also going to be like, remember last year when like Jeremy Roach had kind of like that tournament coming out party? I think this is going to be like version 2 of that, where you have that guard who just goes absolutely berserk. I think he does that in this tournament. I think he does it against Vermont, which I'm totally fine with laying the points there as well.
Yeah, you laid 12. Let me just double check real quick what the spread is at. Drake looks a lot like Duke when you're scrolling quickly. Yeah, I mean, it's still 12, 11 and a half. I'm fine laying those points as well. Listen, the Catamounts are tough. They make the tournament a lot. Yeah. They have upset people a couple of times. I just don't think they're going to do it against Duke. I watched a lot of Catamounts, especially early, because, again, along the lines of College of Charleston, they always play in those multi-team events early that give you a little, because I'm a big fan of those early, you're guaranteed 3 or 4 games in a weekend tournament on a neutral floor series, because it does get you prepped for the madness, and they compete tough in those, but, they're not ready for Duke. But yeah, I think Marquette, especially if they don't get healthy here, I think they're ripe for an upset in, with Florida, because Marquette, you can't rebound, and I can't do anything with a team who puts in that weak ass effort on the offensive glass. Because Florida's monsters on the glass. These guys go after every rebound like it's the only thing between them and victory. And a lot of times it is. Yeah. So I think Florida's a very good sleeper here as a long shot. I want to also just say congratulations for NC State to make the tournament. But I did hear you mention that you like Nebraska over A&M. I do want to say, I am a little surprised being an SEC guy. I got to tell you, this Nebraska team, and even in the same breath, this Wisconsin team, I know that the Big Ten shows up in the tournament, and I disrespect them constantly.
Yeah.
For teams that end up making the Sweet 16. But, it's just one of those things. And I know it's the Big Ten, all they do is beat up on each other. Not really. They can't play on the road. You're just all home court merchants.
Yeah, I was with Texas A&M. I think just because I don't like Buzz Williams. I think that's just my only thing. I just picture them losing in the first round and Buzz Williams making these excuses my guys fought really hard, but X and Y and Z happened. We didn't execute this, which is our main game plan. Cornhuskers here are probably going to, shoot the ball better. I would say hustle advantage definitely goes to Texas A&M, which scares me. But that was probably a coin flip for me.
Yeah, and I get that. And look, I think Nebraska is a decent team. I think that they are definitely improving. I definitely think they are. I think I don't want to butcher his name, but Tamiyaga, the Japanese international that they have, that kid's a stud. He plays on the Japanese Olympics team.
Yeah.
He was soaking wet the other night from 3 in their tournament game. I want to say he was like 4 for 5 while I was watching the end of that game at the bar with my buddy. But like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this Nebraska team. I just don't quite think it's their year. Obviously, they're an 8 seed. Like, I think this Texas A&M team gives them problems defensively, but it's an 8-9 matchup. Like this is, it's a coin flip game, like you said, and it's just fun to talk about. Before we get out of here, I have some stuff. I want to talk about your Final Four. So when you give me your Final Four out of each quadrant, I'm going to come through. I'm going to give the people the odds. I'm going to let you talk, though. Give me your full Final Four. Then I'll give you the people the best odds I have up for each one to win their region. And then give me a take on a champion that you think is going to legitimately win. And then give me a long shot dark horse you like, that if you see him in the Elite 8 or the Final Four, you might buy out of your champ pick.
Okay, so my Final Four, UConn, UNC, and I'm sticking with UNC. I've stuck with them for like 8 weeks. I'm not changing. Kentucky, sorry, Houston. I made the decision that I went with Kentucky. I just don't think you're good enough offensively either to keep. If Kentucky gets hot,
they can drop 120.
Exactly. They have the defense. And then Purdue, also making the tournament there. For my championship game, man, God, I went with UConn versus Purdue. And trust me, every part of me wanted to pick Kentucky. But for my recipe for UConn to win it all, they have to play Purdue. I have UConn winning it all. My dark horse is not that big of a dark horse, is Kentucky winning it all. You know, I'm a lot really like invested in teams who have the legacy, who have the team, who have the defense, and have the coach. Kentucky has all of those pedigree, more than legacy, but they are in a good spot too in their bracket where we talked about, where I don't think Houston's as good. I mean, number one in KenPom rankings, like, you know, we talk about that. I don't think Houston's as good as everyone kind of states there. They are available to be beat. My entire screen just shut off, so we're gonna have to do this off the dome. But
no worries, I got all the numbers up. So
okay, cool.
UConn right now, the best number on the board is plus 450 over at Bet Rivers. You can get plus 400 at Caesars, plus 370 on FanDuel, plus 400 on DK. Look, I bought a piece of UConn back when I want to say they were plus 650 or plus 750.
Yeah,
they've just looked like the best team in the country for a long time. I think if you get a boost and you are looking for something chalk, I think UConn is a good bet. They do have the hardest bracket, though. They have the bracket that's most likely to bounce somebody, but I do think they are the best team in the country, and I think that they can overcome that. To win, what's that? The East region? They're plus 110 to make the Final Four. For me personally, I wouldn't put any money on that. That's just not a high enough return. You would make more money rolling over, even at like minus 20 to 1 in the first game. Put $100 on it and roll it over 4 times. You're going to get a better payout than plus 110 to win 4 games in a row. You just are. Because they're going to come up against somebody where that number is going to be actually bettable. UNC, which region is that? Sorry.
West.
The West region. Thank you. To win the West region is at plus 380. They are the second favorite behind the Arizona Wildcats at plus 230.
Full transparency, I have Arizona to win it all at 20 to 1.
Okay, so that's another dark horse on top of Kentucky.
Yeah,
is
full
AZ.
transparency.
Cool. So yeah, UNC. Again, I think plus 380 to make the Final Four. That's a little bit short of a number. I think you might be better off betting game to game there. But I tend to agree with you. I think that I think UNC is my favorite to come out of that bracket. I think that if you have a couple beverages in Vegas and you want to be a homer, throw in a couple of bucks on Bama to make the Final Four at +7 to +800. That's not a bad pick. I think they will struggle just because at some point you have to play defense in the tournament, and Bama's just proven they don't care. Next up, you have Kentucky coming out of the South region at +700. I think there is value there if you want to bet them to come out of that region. I think you have a very strong path for Kentucky to make the Elite Eight down there. I think that +700 number is really nice. And then in the Midwest region, Purdue at +170. I don't think that's a great number. Again, I think that's a money line rollover situation, but they are favorites to make the Final Four. Your championship exact matchup, I think, is interesting. I don't have that number handy, but if Purdue did win versus Wisconsin, versus UConn, I would be a little surprised because I do think that Klingman gives Edey the best matchup. Like, I think those are the two best big men in all of college basketball. No disrespect to Deron Holmes from Dayton, but he's more of a stretch four. I really like his game, but he's not a true 5 big body center. Like last year when we were watching UConn together, like I loved Sanogo. Problem is, like, there's just not a ton of call for guys like Sanogo who are truly great hoopers. They've been kind of phased out of the NBA. And the only guys that play like him are old veterans on, veteran deals, and dudes like Andre Drummond. Like, you don't have a lot of guys who are over 7 foot that come down with 20 boards a night and they'll maybe get you 12 points, but they're all going to be breakaway dunks.
Agreed.
And then your dark horse to win the tournament, best odds, Kentucky Wildcats. Best number I find is 30 to 1 over on FanDuel. And then you said Zona. I'm seeing 16 to 1 on Bet Rivers for onshore. So you might be better looking offshore on that one. Just like all the other things, my tools only let me shop onshores. I'm not shopping offshores. But Brad, before we get out of here, I want to thank you very much for jumping on with me. I know you have a heart out here. So thank you so much for taking the time. Before you get out of here, is there anything you want to plug, anything you want to say? I can't wait to talk to you again. Have a great time in Vegas. I hope to see you at the window. I cannot wait for you to text me because I know it's going to be a gas.
Yeah, dude. I'm first thing I want to say thank you for having me. Number 2, listen, Oaks will tell you that I literally love these long shot prices during the tournament of player props. There will be a time where a book will misprice players and we will parlay them together. So make sure you are on Twitter at Mr. Brad Thomas because I will send them out. I know we hit one last year that was life-changing for me. And I tweeted it out for everyone because I went stupid and put like $500 on it because I was drunk, and it literally propelled my bankroll. So again, make sure you have your notifications on. And if you're in Vegas during March Madness, feel free to hit me up. I'm down to share a drink with anyone.
Real quick, before you get out of here, one quick jump back. I do want to remind everybody, Brad Thomas, at Mr. Brad Thomas. I got your Twitter handle with your name under here, like a true professional. So again, I appreciate it. Brad, thank you for jumping on. Enjoy your trip. What's going on, guys? I apologize for the jerky transition, but Brad was pressed for time and had a hard out today. So I wanted to make sure that I got a slide up for you all to show you the Brad's list of best bets for the round of 64. He has action down on all of these already. He sent me the tickets. I can confirm it's not like I was ever worried. I know Brad always bets what he talks about, so that was never an issue. I just want to make sure that it's clear and you guys have a list of all of his picks. That way you don't have to scrub the entire video to find out what it was we were talking about. Brad gave out 8 looks for the round of 64 that he likes, starting with Houston minus 24.5. Alabama minus 9.5. Michigan State on the money line. He caught them when they were +1, but that line has flipped, and we discussed it in the video. He is on the same page as me that it's better to lay a little extra juice than it is to have to worry about a push on -1 or get hooked on a -1.5, especially in an 8-9 seed matchup game like that. It's better to pay the juice. Brad likes Duke minus 12, UConn minus 26.5, McNeese State versus Gonzaga over 148.5, Oregon is dogs on the money line, and Creighton laying the 12.5. Again, I apologize about the transition, but I figure with the magic of post-production, I'd rather get you a nice list that is organized and easy to read. Cue the wonky cutback to the main video. And until next time, that's Talking Hoops with Oaks and Brad Thomas. We outside. Deuces.